Council of the City of Girardeau is hereby called to order. Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Arnzen,
Present.
Mr. Bunger,
Present.
Mayor Girardeau,
Present.
Mrs. Caldwell,
Present.
Mr. Dasher,
Present.
Mr. Holloway,
Present.
Ms. Young.
Present.
Do we have any presentations? Does anybody on the council have a report? All right. Does anyone wish to appear before the council regarding any item on the agenda or not on the agenda? Welcome back.
I would like to ask the council if the city of Cape has any jurisdiction along the interstate as far as the trash along the interstate is concerned, because I think that's a pretty bad eyesore for people coming or leaving Cape Girardeau.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. We do have a department that takes part in the highway, and I think your question would be better directed towards them. And if they are present, I think they would mind to speak.
Hello, I'm Heather out of the city manager's office, and there are some sections that we do utilize volunteers and some of our inmates to do some pickup when the trash seems to get worse. As far as who has control over it, though, obviously along the interstate, there's a certain amount of distance of right-of-way that's owned by the Missouri Department of Transportation. So as far as enforcement, obviously our police are the enforcement, so if they see someone litter or are made aware of that, they would be the enforcement hand along with the Missouri Department of Transportation as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I need to know, why can't I have chickens in my yard if I keep them penned up and they're not bothering the neighbors? They're nice, clean chickens, you know. We have chicken every Sunday and the eggs are great. Anybody?
Well, there is, I think, a city ordinance regarding like chickens and any other livestock in the area, and it says that
Does it say anything about them being penned up, or is that free range, or what?
it says no farm animals, no chickens whatsoever, regardless if they're penned up or free range.
What if they're pets?
It says no farm animals, but regardless if it's pets or not.
Well, a dog could be a farm animal,
It's not listed in the ordinance, so
so no chickens.
no chickens.
Darn.
Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, council members, I'd like to know the city's stance on the smoking ban. I'm not a smoker. I have family that are smokers, and I just kind of like to see where you guys stand as far as tax revenue and just the formal implications of whether voting for or against, how it's going to affect the revenue of the city.
Well, Mr. Mayor. As you know, we recently had a vote for it. 52% were against the smoking ban, so they wanted to keep smoking, and 48 were for it. So it was a very close vote, and it's on our agenda today to discuss further into that to see whether or not we would still have a smoking ban, but not as restrictive. And personally, the ward that I represent, they are for the smoking ban. And so, yeah.
Chickens don't smoke.
Is there any further discussion?
So it will be brought up again on the vote, on the ballot? What kind of procedures you have to do to do that? That's on the agenda. I didn't have to use it. Okay.
All those in favor of the smoking ban?
Go ahead and close the public comment and then move into the items for discussion. And start with item number 1.
All right, we will start with item number 1, smoking ban in public places, report Orman of 1.
Mr. Mayor, I'll start. As I said earlier, the voting we just had, we all know the results of that. Basically, what we're here to do today is just discuss and see, because of how close the vote was, whether or not we would still like to impose a smoking ban, but obviously not as restrictive. Examples of this ordinance can be found in several cities in Missouri, like Columbia, Arnold, Kansas City, or even St. Louis and Springfield. And then outside of the state of Missouri, there's a lot more cities like Paducah, Kentucky, and El Paso, Texas. But some of the restrictions obviously wouldn't fit better for business, so we were looking at making it less restrictive as far as keeping smoking open for bars and private clubs, religious foundations and organizations, and even stage performers. Does anyone have any thoughts on that, or whether or not you think that would work out?
Mr. Mayor. Because of the diversity of my ward, I think that a less restrictive smoking ban is a good idea, because some businesses will be affected, and I mean, most of their clientele is smokers. So I think we need to look at both sides and how they affect both sides.
Mr. Mayor?
I think that we've already voted a ban down once, and I don't really see a need to propose one again. The most important asset to a community is its business, and if you start infringing on the rights of business owners by saying that they can or cannot allow something in their establishment, something as simple as smoking, then they may take their business elsewhere into other cities and not ours.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. Yes. Well, going to what you said, Mr. Holloway. Yes, it may take away from some business, but what's taken away might also, or most likely, will be replaced by people who may not go to that business because there were smokers there. And it's not for all the businesses, because mainly the businesses that get a lot of their revenue from smokers, obviously, are bars. But if we do a less restrictive smoking ban, it still won't impose on that. Smokers can still go there. They'll still be able to smoke, obviously. And whereas restaurants, we have plenty of restaurants already in the Cape Girardeau area that are smoke-free, and they are doing quite well. So, and with respect, I don't think it will have that much impact on their business.
Would anyone like to talk about the health concerns related to it? All right, I'll talk about it. Secondhand smoke, as studies have shown, is a known carcinogen, which would support a smoking ban. There are no two. I'm just gonna follow up on that.
I might as well. Going off of what you said, yeah, secondhand smoke, we may not know all the dangers, but we do know it is a hazard to most of our health. So it doesn't necessarily, if I was at a restaurant or a bar and someone was smoking next to me, I'm choosing to stay in that position. So yes, it's also on me that I'm risking my health. But in some instances where I could be far across the restaurant or far across the bar and I could still be inhaling other people's smoke, so though I may try to avoid the health risk, I still am at risk. In which case, there's the debate over whether or not that is a right that I should be entitled to, be healthy, or it's a risk that I'm willing to take.
Yeah. Well, really, Mr. Dijer, like you said, the person does know that they're going into a facility that has smoking, and that is their free choice. If the business allows smoking, the person has the right not to go into that facility and to go find a similar facility that does not have smoking.
You also have to understand that if you're going into a restaurant where they're smoking, you're not going to be in there very long. So you're making the choice to be in there, and how much are you going to be affected by being in there a couple of hours?
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Ms. Caldwell, but that also relates to smokers. Could smokers not go just an hour without smoking to be in a restaurant or a business that is smoke-free?
Mr. Mayor, also, it doesn't just pertain to the patrons and the clients of the business or restaurant, also the workers there, because if you work in an area and they're smoking there, you may not be able to do anything about it, but you're still at risk, and it's just whether or not you're employed there. And as with several disability claims, some people believe that you should be entitled to, work in a safe environment. Safe maybe smoke-free, safe maybe just where you have a certain relation system that will rid the place of most of the harmful elements that come from secondhand smoke.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that it's part of the employer's responsibility to provide their workers with a safe environment. They shouldn't necessarily, whether they deem smoking or not, as a safe environment depends on the business. And I also believe that if employees really do not like working, that they would discuss that with their business or their employers, and so they can make a decision based on their restaurant or workplace.
Any further discussion? Move on. Next subject is report 1102, texting while driving. You want to open up?
Mr. Mayor, I guess I'll start it up again. Texting while driving, of course, as teenagers, we all have kids. We all know that teenagers are brats, and they think they're on top of the world, and they think they're invincible. And it's one of those things. Like, yes, teenagers may be better at texting than their parents, but it's also one of the things. Like, because they think they're better, they're going to do it more often, so they're going to put themselves at risk more often. And studies have shown that even talking on a cell phone, let alone texting, hinders your observational skills, and you miss, maybe it's a biker on the road, or you miss a stop sign, or you don't see the stoplight or the stoplight turn yellow to red. So it just puts you more at risk if you're distracted.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that enforcing such a ban on texting would be very, very difficult, especially if it's within a certain age range, like under 21, because you have to verify that the person is under 21 while they were texting, and that they were actually texting, not calling someone or doing anything else with their phone at the time.
State legislation says that all drivers under the age of 21 are not allowed to text. So we cannot go anything less strict than that. So does anyone propose to restructure the law?
Well, I think we can all agree that texting and driving is dangerous. Passing a law, like Ms. Fowl said, would be extremely hard to enforce, and I don't really know or think that it would be practical or feasible to pass a law that would be impossible to enforce. after you pull someone over, then you'd have to check to see if they're, 22 or 23, and if they're that, then why are they treated differently than people who are a year younger?
Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
I think that you could impose a ban for all ages, but then you would still have to look at how are we going to handle like search and seizure and search warrants and stuff, because they can't just take your phone. So that would be like, once we passed all ages, we could look at that.
Mr. Mayor, that's going to be on the subject that I would touch on with the search and seizure. If you do pull over a person and they are under 21, you think that they were texting and driving, but maybe they weren't. How do you justify whether or not to look at their phone and when not to look at their phone? That would go back to the difficulty of enforcing it.
Also, once we start here, we make a law that says no texting. What's to say? There's several other things, like Mr. Deisher said. Talking on the phone is also very distracting. I mean, where do we stop? Once you start, there's going to be several other possibilities. It's like opening up the door. You have to decide how far you want it.
Mr. Mayor, I know in several places in Virginia, in Pennsylvania, I'm not sure if it's a full statewide ordinance or law, but I do know that in several counties, because I have family in Pennsylvania and we drive there often, it is illegal to actually hold a phone to your ear and talk. You can have the Bluetooth, but if you have the phone to your ear, you can't get pulled over just for that reason.
Is there any further discussion on this topic? Move on to report 1103. Discussion on ordinance to establish no parking any time in order to allow installation of bicycle lanes.
Mr. Mayor? I feel that it would be best for both sides of the issue if we looked more towards the shared use arrows instead of just like set aside lanes. I think then it's kind of a compromise. People still have their parking, and then people still have their bike lanes.
Mr. Mayor, I believe the problem, if you have like all the bike lanes are shared bike lanes, then you're going to have problems where there's so many cars parked that bikers have to ride on the street or on the sidewalk because their lane is completely full of cars.
Mr. Mayor, but also the time of year, it's not going to be year-round for all the cars to be in that one area, like we discussed earlier. It'll mostly be, holiday times when they have family, graduation time when they are having friends and family to celebrate the graduation, or, very rarely on the occasion of a block party, in which case, yes, it may be busy, but it won't be busy constantly. The bike lanes will be taken up, but they won't be taken up constantly. There'll still be enough room for the bikers to go around, and there'll still be enough room for the cars to park with respect to the bikers, of course.
Mayor, also, I think we should take into account that cyclists will only be, most will only be riding maybe 8 or 9 months per year. In the bad seasons, it wouldn't be, necessary to have no parking any time through November, December, January, when a lot of cyclists won't be out on the roads.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. Also, the bike lanes are also a safety issue as well, because if there are bike lanes, the bikers will stay in their bike lanes, so they have a better chance of not getting hit by a car, and a better chance of not being at risk. Because if there weren't any bike lanes, they would have to share the road with drivers, and as we all know, everyone's susceptible to road rage, and sometimes stuff happens. And you may not realize it, and going back to the texting and driving, if you're texting and driving and talking on the phone, biker doesn't have the bike lane, and you don't see that he comes out, anything can happen.
Any further discussion? Report 1104, the housing of chickens within the city limits of the borough. We'd like to open up discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that housing chickens, if you start with chickens, then how can you stop? Maybe keep saying we want to keep other types of fowl or other types of farm animals. So you can't just allow one type and then tell someone else, oh no, you can't have this, you don't allow this. So banning all of them makes it unfair.
Do we have any type of estimate as to whether or not the keeping of chickens or other small birds would decrease someone's property value within our city?
I think that question would be better directed towards the city attorney.
I'm going to check on that. I'll get back to you.
Going back to what the city manager was saying, I think it would be actually easy to put a stop on things because, with chickens, not roosters, we're talking about chickens, so there won't be the noise that comes with roosters. If we put a limit on the number of chickens you have and we put the limit where the pen or the chicken coop must be umpteen feet, 20 feet away from the property line, that could be a start. And then, obviously the person wouldn't be allowed to have cows, horses, or pigs without the necessary land, because if you have 10 pigs in the same amount of land that you would have 10 chickens, it wouldn't be enough. You'd have to have enough space for each of the pigs, or enough space for the cows to graze, for the horses to eat. And so you have to look into just the more animal rights issue on that as well, if you don't know where to put the stop in.
Mr. Mayor, if you put the chicken coop a certain amount of feet away from property lines and stuff, who are you going to have inspect that? Are we going to have to hire someone else to go around and make sure everybody's following the law, or are you going to let people do that on their own?
Mr. Mayor, we'd also need people to inspect for cleanliness. That way, parasites or other things don't get spread. And then there could also be complaints from neighbors about noise and stuff, and we'd have to follow those as well.
That's right. I think going back to the complaints thing the city manager was just referring to, it would be similar to, in a neighborhood, if a person's weeds were several feet tall, the neighbors could file a complaint and the police could come and, tell the person that they need to take care of it. In which case, that could be the same manner as the chickens. Whereas if the person looks in their neighbor's yard and they know it's not 20 feet away, or the cleanliness isn't up to standard and doesn't follow the ordinance, they can call the police and have them take a look at it and talk to the person, tell them what they are infringing upon, what rules they have broken, what needs to be done to fix it.
Mr. Mayor, we could also implement a system where a property owner would have to apply for some kind of right to raise chickens, or just register when they have the desire to raise chickens. So this spot will be known, and then we could send, a designated, someone or a team to inspect them every few months, just to make sure they're up to standards and keeping with the ordinance and no complaints from the neighbors.
I would go ahead,
Mr. Mayor. All of this about the ordinance and trying to make it where it would seem reasonable and there wouldn't be noise complaints or anything like that, and all the inspections, it just seems like a very large hassle. And honestly, I'm sure upkeep would be expensive, and I don't understand why people can't just purchase organic eggs at a store. Eggs are sold at stores that don't have,
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. The organic market right now is actually very expensive. So organic foods are much more expensive than the process. And so in the long run, if you have your own free-range chicken and you know it's going into them, it would be cheaper for you to pay for the chickens, raise the chickens, pay for their upkeep, and keep all those eggs instead of going out and buying and buying and buying.
I know, but you would still have to pay for food for the chickens, the upkeep, and you would have to make sure that you had the right permits and things like that to keep the chickens. It just seems
Eventually,
like
the
very
cost would even out.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to say.
If someone really, really wants to raise chickens, then and if we don't allow them, then they would move out to the country and we would lose the money we get from their property taxes.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if it'd go to that extreme that Mr. Holloway is talking about. However, it is a possibility. But I'm going to have to go a little bit of Richard Nixon on everybody and talk about if I gave my daughter a chicken and its name was Checkers. Would I take away that chicken from my daughter if she loved it? No, I would let her keep the chicken. So also you got to figure, the chicken wouldn't just be a source of food, it'd be a pet, a loving member of the family.
Why would you give her a chicken?
She likes chicken legs.
Does anybody else have anything to say on this topic?
I would just like to say that a lot of other cities have urban chicken ordinances like Columbia and bigger cities than that. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, moving on to report 1105. Major project prioritization.
Mr. Mayor, looking at the $1 million that we have to spend and the list of activities and stuff that we could use it for, I think one of the most important ones is paying off our emergency debt because it frees up so much more money and it leaves part of the $1 million to use on other small projects. So we get more for the money out of that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd also say that probably our main priority is anything that has to do with safety and that would affect the most amount of people. Like airport fire needs would probably be something that would need to be done. Maybe not the first thing, but near the top. And then additional outdoor warning sirens because that would affect in regards to
Mr. Mayor, as Ms. Caldwell said, we have $1 million right now to spend, and I would agree with her on the emergency debt because not only will we have more money in the future, it also gets rid of the debt, in which case we'll have more time to spend that money. But with the sirens, I've been all over town, and I know that I can hear them pretty much anywhere in town because those things are loud. So I do agree that is an important need, but there are probably more important things like the airport, and as far as a community, not a community garden, obviously I don't think that's very important. So I think we should consider that as a very high priority need at the moment. Maybe something to look at in the future, but as of now, I think we should get more important things taken care of.
I'd like to see that the unlit portions of River Park Trail are lit because that's another safety hazard. Because in dark areas, it's
Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I see on here one of our possibilities is adding 2 police officers, and with the casino coming in, it could lead to more crime. So a couple of police officers to help in the safety and help in, keeping the law intact might not be a bad idea. But then again, that would be an ongoing payment, so we'd have to subtract that amount of money for every year to come. It wouldn't just be a one-time thing.
And right now, they just closed down the Capitol Pool. I mean, that's just kind of like a vacant spot. It's right next to Broadway, one of the main streets. People will drive by and they'll say, "Oh, there's a gap right there. I mean, it's clearly visible. We need to kind of fill it because it's there. It's in the open. People can see it, and it hurts the city.
Mr. Mayor, are you suggesting a dog park, or what exactly are you suggesting you put in that place?
Well, I mean, like a dog park would be a good idea. You could put some, like, from that area, you could start a trail, set up trails, go to all the other different parks. There's several opportunities, many possibilities.
Concerning the dog park, can people with dogs not play with their dogs in the regular parks?
I think if you establish a dog park, it would be more of a concentrated location for dog owners and their dogs.
When I go to the parks, I mean, it's not like it's absolutely packed with people. I mean, usually there's plenty of room for everybody, but
I would say, Mr. Mayor, sorry. I would say one of the things that we should consider is either fixing or demolishing condemned homes. It'd only be $100,000 for the first couple of years, but if we demolish those homes, we could put those lots up for sale. People will buy those lots, either keep them or build a house on them, in which case we get the property tax revenue from that. We get not only local businesses improving for the construction and whatnot, but I think overall that would be something we should look into as far as taking care of immediately.
And more money into our economy.
Exactly.
we'll open up space for new either homeowners or more likely business owners for this kind of housing economy to come in soon.
And the same thing can be said for some of the businesses on Broadway, like the old Esquire Theater and stuff like that that's condemned, but it's still sitting here.
I do have a question about one of these things on here, though. For the generator at the new Shawnee Park Community Center, I was wondering what exactly the purpose that would serve for them to have a generator.
Parks and Recreation might have something to say on that.
Our community buildings are often used as shelters during times of emergencies, and so having the backup generator allows it to where if it's weather related or something that could affect the power, that they're still operating as a shelter. So tornado, weather, flooding, that kind of stuff. So that's the purpose that we have for it.
All right, thank you. I do have another question on here, actually, about establishing an RV park near the casino. I'm personally not in favor of that yet. It may actually create some money, but as far as getting complaints about it being an eyesore and RVs are big, so obviously it'd be a hassle to maneuver through the downtown area. So it's a potential safety hazard when we do have RV parks elsewhere in this area.
First of all, Mr. Seizure, I really agree with you. The RV park right there next to the gazebo, it could also be like gangs. That could be a really high spot for them. Like you said, RVs are big. There's a lot of places to hide in there.
It's true.
The streets downtown are narrow enough without RVs on them.
Especially on Fridays and Saturday nights when it's just packed, crammed full of people. It'd be hard to get out or even get in there.
Mr. Mayor, I also agree with Mr. Deisher. I don't see the need of another RV park when we already have spaces for RVs in the city.
Mr. Mayor, I have to say one thing I guess the RV park would be good for near the casino is that if people want to come to the casino, they would have a place right by there in the downtown area where they can stay. So it might increase some.
Well, we could also solve that by building a hotel, which would not only bring in the people who would normally be in an RV, but other people who need a place to stay. So.
Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
As far as the hotel goes, or I think the hotel is a good idea, but it would also take some time and some money. When we have other hotels where we could just have, shuttles running from the hotel to the Isle of Capri, just incorporate that into the shuttle system we already have going on. So more business for the hotel without much cost.
A shuttle system would be a lot less expensive than both an RV park or a hotel. And, I mean, we already just opened, like, I think it's a Candlewood Suites out by Central.
And shuttle service will also be a very good idea for as far as safety goes, because when you're gambling, you may have a little bit to drink and you may think you're okay, but the shuttle service is there, so
Yeah.
safety concerns would be perfect for it.
That's good.
Jobs for people in the city. Grab a shuttle.
Does anybody else?
I also think the recycling options, the expansion of that would be just a good idea. If you go green, it's not that much of a cost, and it also helps in the future. So just something we should look into in the future.
But didn't the city just do like a reorganization of the trash and recycling with the new recycling bins and stuff? So now all they have to do is throw everything in one thing. I mean, yeah, they don't pick up certain items, but
I think it's more oriented towards businesses as far as expanding their options for recycling, and then for residents, the stuff that they can't recycle, it'd be more convenient for them if we have more areas to drop it off at. I think that's what it is referring to in this prioritization.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.